When we think of Egypt, we quickly think of pyramids, miles and miles of desert sand, and pharaohs. Egypt is so much more than all of that. Hidden in the dunes of Egypt are tons of discoveries that are just begging to be uncovered. Luckily for us, these discoveries are being made every day by brave scientists and researchers. What are some of these mysterious finds, and how do they impact our knowledge of the world? Join us as we unveil 15 shocking discoveries made in Egypt. Number 15, mummified crocodiles. In 2018, researchers uncovered 7 small tombs under a Byzantine-era rubbish dump. In one of the tombs are crocodiles that are mummified. The crocodiles are not treated with resin. They were preserved just as they are. This incredible find has given researchers the rare opportunity to study these crocodiles and gain an understanding of their life 2,500 years ago. The mummies found were from 10 adult crocodiles of different species. Their remains were unearthed from a tomb at Qubbat al-Hawa on the west bank of the Nile River. The discovery of these mummies near the Nile River makes us think that these crocodiles were probably the gigantic Nile crocodiles, which range from 6 to 11.5 feet. So how did these crocodiles die? Well, a close examination of their corpse shows no signs of violence. It is theorized that they died of drowning asphyxia or the scorching desert sun. While this discovery may shock some of us today, it was pretty common to mummify animals in ancient Egypt. Mummified animals such as cats, ibises, and baboons are common in Egyptian tombs. Number 14, the bones. A team from the Center of Egyptological Research of the Russian Academy of Sciences, CEI-RAS, has recently discovered a bizarre scene. While working on excavation at a necropolis in the Fayum oasis, they found the bones of a child buried with the bones of 142 dogs. The dogs are of different ages, but most seem to be puppies. Upon closer look, the discovery gets even more puzzling. Over the head of the 8-year-old child is a linen bag. CEI-RAS has noted that this burial is quite unusual in ancient Egypt. So, they postulate that this bizarre burial came about as a mix of religious and magical ideas. Also, they think foreigners living in Fayum may have enacted their strange burial practices during their time there. Although the scene was quite strange, researchers have clues about what may have happened to the dogs. Blue clay was reportedly found on the dog bones by archaeologists. This kind of clay was also widely found in ancient Egyptian reservoirs, so it is probable that a catastrophic flood was responsible for the extinction of these animals, since the dogs show no signs of having been abused or murdered. As for the child, researchers have suggested that she may have been caring for the dogs at the time of her death. Number 13. The Outer Space Dagger King. Tutankhamun's dagger dates back to the 14th century and was discovered during the 1925 unwrapping of his mummy. The origins of King Tutankhamun's dagger are still hotly debated by archaeologists. However, through high-tech X-ray, researchers at the Polytechnic University of Milan found that the age-long dagger contains 10% nickel and 0.6% cobalt. When the dagger was compared to 11 metallic meteorites, it was discovered that they were made of the same elements. The dagger in itself is quite the sight. It has a beautifully decorated handle and a rounded knob of rock crystal. The dagger is encased in a gold sheet decorated with a pattern of lilies, a jackal head, and feathers. Ancient Egyptians found iron quite challenging to work with, so they usually used alternative metals to make their weapons. Also, iron objects were rare and considered more valuable than gold during the Bronze Age, and were mainly used for decorative purposes. When archaeologist Howard Carter discovered the blade, it was long suspected that it was made from a meteorite. Through the use of high-tech X-rays, the suspicion has finally been confirmed. The finding of King Tutankhamun's blade gives us valuable insight into the weapon craftsmanship of ancient Egyptians. Number 12. Headless Falcon archaeologists in Egypt have discovered a 1700-year-old falcon shrine in Berenike, an old port city in Egypt. Even more stunning is the cryptic message found in a part of the shrine, which read, "It is improper to boil a head in here." The shrine has about 15 headless falcons and a stone monument depicting 2 gods that are not yet known. David Frankfurter explains that the headless falcons could be some live sacrifice made to the god that the shrine was built for. In another shrine room, the archaeologists found a pillar with the inscription, it is improper to boil a head in here. It is hypothesized that the headless falcons boiled before being presented to the god, perhaps to facilitate plucking their feathers, and that their heads were removed. The inscription on the pillar may warn people not to boil the head of the sacrifice in that shrine area. The shrine shows us the religious practices of ancient Egyptians and how animal sacrifice was a big part of worship. Number 11. Long tunnel archaeologists in Egypt discovered a rock tunnel beneath the Taposiris Magna Temple. The Taposiris Magna Temple is in the ancient city of Taposiris Magna, west of Alexandria. The tunnel that they discovered is carved into the rock, and it is about 42 feet below the ground. While the tunnel itself is a fantastic find, several artifacts were obtained from it, and they include beheaded statues, coins, and statues of deities. A statement released by the Egyptian Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities says that the tunnel is about 4,300 feet long. The scientists who made this groundbreaking discovery believed that the tunnel could lead them to the tomb of the Egyptian queen, Cleopatra, and her lover, Mark Antony. Although the chances of that happening are slim, scientists think that it would be the most important discovery of this century if it did happen. Number 10. Missing tooth. The mummy of Hatshepsut has been positively identified using a missing tooth. Hatshepsut is one of the greatest pharaohs who reigned for over 3,000 years. Zahi Hawass, a leading archaeologist, has said that this is the most important discovery in the Valley of the Kings since the discovery of King Tutankhamun. So, who was Hatshepsut? Hatshepsut ruled over Egypt, the most advanced civilization in the world, for about 15 years, 1473–58 BC, and was only the second woman known to have assumed the throne. Hatshepsut was the daughter of Thutmose I and married her half-brother Thutmose II. Hatshepsut ruled as regent on behalf of the infant son, and then she eventually took over the throne from him. She ultimately died, and her mummy went missing. The quest to find her mummy led people to tomb KV-60, containing the remains of two ladies. In the tomb's wooden box was a clue, a tooth. The tooth was a key player in bringing to rest the mystery concerning the queen's final resting place. Dentists were called in to examine the tooth using a scan. The results from a tooth of one of the women found in the tomb matched the space of the queen's mouth perfectly. Number 9. Flying bird art. Americans discovered what can only be described as an Egyptian masterpiece back in 1920 when they were working at Amarna's North Palace. This palace was that of Meritaten, the daughter of Pharaoh Akhenaten and Queen Nefertiti, whose name meant she who is beloved of Aten. Her father was a staunch worshipper of Aten, the sun god. So, he gave her the name in reverence to his god. The palace where the discovery was made was built between 1347 and 1332 BC. The avian artwork discovered in this palace is something that even modern-day artists will struggle to reproduce. Modern-day artists also say that the space where this masterpiece was kept would have created a unique sensory experience. That's how breathtaking the flying bird art is. The art is so detailed that scientists have been able to identify the birds represented in it. Birds such as pigeons, doves, wagtails, and shrikes are all present in the art. The avian art discovered in Amarna's North Palace is truly a beacon of ancient art and gives us a quick glimpse into how skillful our ancestors were. Number 8. Greek temple found in Egypt. A temple dedicated to the worship of the Greek god Zeus has been discovered in Egypt. Strange, right? What is the temple of a Greek god doing in Egypt? The temple of Zeus Cassios was uncovered at the archaeological site of Tel El Farma, known in Roman times as Pelusius. This was announced by Egypt's Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities. This discovery has made us understand that ancient Egypt was indeed a multicultural civilization. The excavation by the team focused on the entrance of the temple, where two collapsed granite columns were visible on the surface. Zeus Cassios is a fusion of the Greek god Zeus and Mount Cassios in Syria. Mount Cassios is revered as the home of the Canaanite god Baal and his sister Anat. Some legends say that Zeus fought Typhon on Mount Cassios in a bid to rule the cosmos. Zeus eventually triumphed and gained control of the cosmos. The two collapsed granite stones that can be seen at the entrance are said to have collapsed due to a significant earthquake. Apart from the granites, other architectural elements, such as Corinthian capitals, were also found on the site. Scientists say that these elements may have been incorporated into later churches that were built at the site. If we learn nothing else from this discovery, we now know that ancient Egypt was multicultural in how they lived and worshipped. Number 7. The Mystery Lady. A Polish scientist team has discovered the only example of a pregnant mummy. This discovery is one of a kind. Scientists made it at the Warsaw Mummy Project, which started in 2015. The Warsaw Mummy Project uses technology to examine artifacts housed at the National Museum in Warsaw. At first, the mummy was thought to be a male priest. But when further scans were done, it was discovered that the mummy was, in fact, a pregnant woman in the later stage of pregnancy. Experts who examined the mummy say she was probably a high-class woman, who was between 20 and 30 years of age and died in the 1st century BC. Scientists used the fetus's head circumference to determine that the fetus was perhaps 26 to 36 weeks when the mother died. The circumstances surrounding the death of the woman remain a mystery. Even though this remains the only pregnant mummy to be found, the process used in identifying the soft tissues of the fetus can be used to identify others. Number 6. Hawara Labyrinth. The labyrinth was first discovered by Egyptologist Flinders Petrie in 1888. Petrie dug around where the structure was suspected and found some blocks buried in the Egyptian sand. He assumed that he had found the foundation of the labyrinth. However, Petrie was standing on the roof of this ancient structure. In 1888, after the Petrie find, the labyrinth of Hawara was left largely unexplored. However, in 2008, another attempt was made by the Mataha expedition team to unravel the location of the labyrinth. Using sonar, the Mataha expedition team could see the massive labyrinth, the size of a football stadium. Further efforts by the team were frustrated by the Secretary of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities, Zahi Hawass, as he refused any expedition to be made on the site. The truth about the labyrinth remains shrouded in secrecy. Number 5. Khafre Statue. Auguste Mariette was the first person to discover the Khafre's diorite in 1860 CE. He found the Khafre's diorite buried in a pit under the Khafre's temple. Today, the Khafre's diorite is in the Cairo Museum and draws visitors from all over the world. We all know that statues are usually depicting an actual person, which begs the question, who is the Khafre's diorite statue depicting? Actually, this statue is of Pharaoh Khafre from the 4th dynasty seated on a lion-pawed throne. The ancient pharaoh is depicted on the throne, sitting in a kingly position. His fists are tightly clenched, and behind his head is a bird, symbolic of the god Horus. Researchers say that the pharaoh himself had this built with the specifications to remind the people that a pharaoh represented God on earth. Number 4. Screaming Mummy. The Screaming Mummy was discovered at Deir el-Bahri, near the Valley of the Kings. Upon discovery, scientists were horrified by the way the mummy looked. The mummy had an agape mouth, which led scientists to believe that the mummy died screaming. Scientists were also left wondering which ancient pharaoh or ruler's mummy this was. When the matter was probed, it was discovered that the mummy was that of Prince Pentawere. The circumstances surrounding his death goes like this. Prince Pentawere had successfully attempted his father's, Ramses 111, life. Upon his father's death, the prince and all those who helped in his sinister plot were tried. The ones who helped in the assassination were mutilated and killed. However, it seems the prince wasn't killed like the rest. When his mummy was examined, it showed signs of poisoning. So, it is postulated that Prince Pentawere took poison and died. Due to the horrible nature of his crimes, his body was not embalmed with fluid, causing his muscles to naturally mummify, which possibly led to the screaming position of his mouth. Number 3. Golden Man scientists discovered the body of a man buried with jewelry and gold leaf in the tombs of Saqqara. Buried in the far-stretching sands of Egypt, the Golden Man mummy shows how men of influence were buried in ancient Egypt. The mummy was found in a locked sarcophagus, meaning the people who buried him didn't want his tomb looted, probably because of the man's high standing in society. Experts who examined the mummy have noted that the Golden Man wasn't royalty, but he did possess a lot of wealth. On the head of the mummy is a headband, and on his chest are chest bracelets. The identity of the Golden Man hasn't been ascertained, but one thing is sure from this discovery. The rich in ancient Egypt were buried in a way that depicted their status. Number 2. Lost Golden City Zahi Hawass, a famous Egyptian scholar, has announced the discovery of the lost Golden City. According to him, the lost Golden City was discovered in 2020, and he terms it one of the most important discoveries of this century. Amenhotep III built the lost Golden City. His heretic son then abandoned the city. In the discovery of the lost Golden City, other artifacts, such as trinkets belonging to Queen Tiye, wife of Amenhotep III, were also found in the city. Due to the city being discovered only recently, so much is not known about it yet. However, scientists say that the level of preservation of the city has been impressive so far, and they hope that they can learn more about this fantastic city. Did you know that just 7 months after the lost Golden City was discovered, bakeries, residential areas, and even an administrative district have been identified in the city? These discoveries leave us wondering if there are more of these cities buried in the sands of Egypt. Number 1. Gold-tongued mummies. In November 2022, archaeologists discovered an ancient cemetery in Qubbat, Egypt. They stumbled on 3 tombs that contained dead people with golden tongues. Well, not really gold tongues, but gold foils, shaped to look like tongues. Bizarre, right? But there is a reason why ancient Egyptians did this. Ancient Egyptians believed that dead people stood a better chance of convincing Osiris, the god of the underworld, to grant them passage into the underworld if they were eloquent. Hence, they thought a golden tongue would go a long way in convincing Osiris. So, when a loved one passes, they will cut off the actual tongue and replace it with a gold foil. The golden-tongued mummies in the Qaisana tomb were buried in 30 BCE and 640 CE, according to researchers. When they were found last year, they were already being looted. 2 of the sarcophagi had been vandalized by grave robbers, but one was left untouched, allowing the research team to discover the mummies. Don't be too alarmed by this seemingly bizarre practice, because the discovery of other mummies buried with gold tongues at the Taposiris Magna in western Alexandria in February 2021 and at a burial site in Oxyrhynchus el-Banasa shows that this was common practice in those times. Egypt is a country that never stops giving, so we expect that in a few years more mysteries will be discovered in this ancient city. If you want to be updated about discoveries made in Egypt, turn on the notification for our video, give us a like, and subscribe to our channel. Till next time, stay cool.